You stand on a frozen path. The wind whips past your ears, sharp as a newly honed blade. Your breath plumes thick and white, dissolving into the biting air. Ahead, a village huddles, its roofs burdened with a fresh mantle of snow, smoke barely rising from a few chimneys. This is winter in the Middle Ages, a season not just of discomfort, but of profound struggle. No thermostat, no double glazing, no easy access to fuel. How did ordinary people endure months of relentless cold, icy winds and scarce resources? How did they keep their homes warm, their bodies fed, and their spirits from freezing? We will journey back in time, stepping into their world, to uncover the ingenious strategies and shared resilience that allowed them to survive. Feel the chill, hear the silence, and discover the forgotten ways of mastering winter's ancient grip. You feel the cutting wind against your cheek, watching the meager plumes of smoke struggle from a few distant chimneys. The world outside is a canvas of stark white and biting gray. Let us draw closer now. We will step through the threshold of one such dwelling, leaving the relentless, biting air behind, and enter the very heart of medieval survival, the hearth. Your boots crunch on the frozen earth as you approach a small, squat house. Its walls are thick, perhaps made of wattle and daub, an ingenious network of interwoven branches plastered with a dense, insulating mix of mud, clay, straw, and animal dung. Or perhaps they are of rough-hewn stone, mortared together with more mud, creating a formidable barrier against the elements. The roof, steep and heavily thatched with layers of reeds or straw, slopes low, almost reaching the ground on one side, a shaggy, protective blanket. There are no grand, multi-paned windows here. Instead, you might see just one or two narrow, unglazed slits, barely letting in a sliver of the muted winter light. These aren't crude design flaws. They are deliberate, hard-won defenses against the relentless cold. Every crack, every opening, is a potential thief of precious warmth, a vulnerability the medieval builders strove to eliminate. This house is more than just a structure. It is a fortress, built not against marauding armies, but against the silent, pervasive enemy of winter itself. You duck low to pass through a heavy wooden door, reinforced with thick planks, its hinges groaning softly like an old sentinel. The immediate change as you cross the threshold is striking, almost profound. The raw, open chill of the outside world is suddenly muffled, softened, held at bay. You are enveloped by a different kind of air, thick, earthy, smoky, and above all, genuinely, blessedly warmer. It is a primal warmth, not the dry, uniform heat of a modern central heating system, but a dense, almost chewable atmosphere, carrying the layered sense of burning wood, of drying herbs, of simmering food, and of human presence. This single large room is the entirety of the home for a family, often an extended one, and sometimes shared with their most valuable animals. There are no separate bedrooms, no distinct living areas neatly divided by walls. Every aspect of daily life, from waking to sleeping, from cooking to crafting, converges here. And there it is. Not a sophisticated fireplace set neatly into a wall, but often a simple, stone-lined pit, sometimes just a bare patch of hardened earth, at the very center of the room. This is the hearth, the beating heart, the very sun of the medieval home. A constant, flickering orange glow emanates from it, pushing back against the encroaching shadows that cling to the corners of the room. You see the embers, deep red and pulsing with life, beneath a few freshly laid logs, spitting and crackling as the flames eagerly begin to embrace them. This fire is not merely for comfort, it is life itself. It cooks food, making sustenance digestible and safe. It provides the only source of light after dusk, allowing work to continue and stories to be shared. It dries damp clothes and damp bones, preventing the dangerous, damp cold from seeping into flesh and causing illness. Without this fire, the very existence of the family would be precarious, perhaps impossible. But to maintain this precious, life-giving fire, an immense, continuous effort is required. Imagine the relentless labor involved in gathering fuel. There are no deliveries of natural gas, no convenient bags of charcoal bought from a store. Every single log, every bundle of kindling has been painstakingly collected. For many, this means venturing out into the snow-laden woods, axe or saw in hand, chopping down fallen branches, splitting logs, and then dragging the heavy, unwieldy burdens back to the village. In regions devoid of forests, the fuel might be peat, cut from the bogs and carefully dried over weeks or months, or even dried animal dung, meticulously collected from barns and fields, then stacked high to ferment and cure. This isn't just a chore, it is a critical life-sustaining endeavor, a daily negotiation with the unforgiving landscape. Winter survival is a constant, pressing calculation. How much fuel do we have, how much longer will it last, and what risks must we take to replenish it before the stores run perilously low? As you stand near the hearth, you notice something else, something both familiar and profoundly different from modern living: the smoke. In many early medieval homes, especially those of ordinary people, there is no proper chimney, not as we understand it with a flue leading cleanly outside. Instead, a simple hole in the roof, perhaps a louvered vent or an opening directly above the fire pit, allows some of the smoke to escape. But much of it lingers, swirling in the upper reaches of the room, creating a hazy canopy. It coats the rough-hewn timbers and the thatched ceiling with a dark, glistening layer of soot, a silent testament to countless fires. Your eyes might sting a little, your throat might feel a slight catch, a tickle that encourages a cough. This pervasive smokiness is an unavoidable fact of life. While undoubtedly uncomfortable and a significant health concern by modern standards, it serves an unintended purpose. The smoke acts as an insect repellent, keeping vermin at bay. It also helps preserve meats hanging from the rafters, slow smoking them to extend their shelf life. But the undeniable cost is chronic respiratory issues, a constant battle against irritation and grime, and a distinctive, smoky scent that permeates everything: clothes, hair, skin. The warmth radiating from the hearth draws everyone relentlessly towards it. You see a family huddled remarkably close, their bodies a tapestry of shared warmth. The mother tends to a heavy iron pot suspended over the flames on a tripod or hung from a chain, perhaps a thick pottage or stew bubbling gently, its savory aroma mingling richly with the smoke and earth. Children sit on low wooden stools or directly on the packed earth floor, their faces illuminated by the dancing firelight, perhaps carving small wooden toys with simple knives or meticulously mending torn clothing with bone needles and sinew thread. An older man might be carefully sharpening a tool, the rhythmic, metallic rasp of stone on steel adding to the symphony of the home. This single multifunctional space is their kitchen, their dining room, their workshop, their social hub, and their bedroom. Every activity, every moment of rest or labor, converges on this central, indispensable source of heat and light. As evening deepens and the precious daylight fades completely, the focus on the hearth intensifies. The fire is carefully managed, not allowed to burn itself out. Precious, glowing embers are meticulously preserved under a layer of ash, a practice known as banking the fire, ensuring they will remain hot enough to be easily rekindled in the morning without the arduous effort of starting anew. People sleep remarkably close to it, often on straw mattresses laid directly on the earth floor or on simple wooden platforms, sometimes built into the walls. They huddle together, a mass of humanity generating and sharing body heat, perhaps wrapped in rough woolen blankets, woven from their own sheep's wool or animal skins, carefully prepared and softened. Sometimes, especially on the very coldest nights, the family's most valuable livestock, a goat, a pig, a few chickens, might also share a section of the dwelling, their living, breathing presence adding another layer of warmth, an additional natural furnace in the small enclosed space. This communal sleeping arrangement is not merely about closeness or comfort. It is a fundamental, deeply ingrained strategy for survival, a way to collectively generate and conserve warmth against the creeping, deadly cold that presses in from all sides. Listen closely for a moment. You hear the soft crackle and pop of the dying fire, gradually settling into a gentle hiss. You hear the steady rhythmic breathing of the sleeping family, the occasional rustle of straw as someone shifts. Outside, the wind continues its relentless, mournful howl, a restless predator circling this small, fragile haven. But inside there is a profound sense of security, of resilience, a quiet strength. The air is still heavy with the distinct scent of wood smoke, of damp earth, of bodies and of lingering food, but it is the scent of life persisting, of a daily, hard-won victory against the harshness of winter. The hearth is more than just a source of heat. It is a symbol of community, of shared struggle, of ingenuity, and of unwavering hope in the face of an unforgiving world. This intimate world, centered around the flickering, life-giving light of the hearth, vividly reveals the deep ingenuity and sheer grit required to survive. It is a world where warmth is not a given convenience, easily adjusted with a thermostat, but a hard-won triumph, fought for with every painstakingly gathered log, every carefully banked ember, every shared breath. You now understand that the medieval home was not just a shelter, it was a carefully constructed ecosystem with the hearth as its sun, around which all life revolved. It kept bodies warm, food cooked, and spirits alight through the long dark nights of winter. But even with the hearth burning brightly, the battle against the cold was far from over. Other ingenious methods were employed to keep the chill at bay, both inside and outside the home. We will explore those next. But for now, let the primal, comforting warmth of the medieval hearth settle deeply within you. You step away from the hearth, its radiant heat still clinging to your skin, a phantom warmth that quickly dissipates the moment you move into the less protected corners of the dwelling. The air, even indoors, carries a distinct chill that reminds you how precious that central fire truly is. But the hearth, powerful as it is, cannot follow you outside into the biting winds and the relentless grip of a medieval winter. For that, you need a different kind of shield. You need to dress. And dressing in the Middle Ages, particularly for the cold, was an art form of necessity. Forget the light, flowing fabrics you might imagine from illuminated manuscripts. When the snow flew and the rivers froze, your clothing was quite literally your mobile shelter, a personal ecosystem designed to trap every precious particle of body heat. You are about to discover that your wardrobe is a matter of life and death. Imagine pulling on your first layer. Against your skin you wear linen. It is not for warmth directly but for hygiene and comfort. This simple undergarment, perhaps a loose tunic or a pair of braids, acts as a barrier, wicking away moisture from your body. It is the layer you can wash more frequently, keeping your heavier outer garments cleaner for longer. Feel the cool, smooth touch of the linen against your skin, a stark contrast to the rougher textures yet to come. Now the true shield begins. Over your linen you layer wool. Wool is the undisputed king of medieval winter fabrics. You understand why as soon as you touch it. It is thick, sometimes coarse, sometimes finely woven, but always present. Wool has a magical quality. It retains its insulating properties even when damp, a critical advantage in a world where drying clothes was a monumental task and being caught in a sudden downpour or a snow flurry was an everyday risk. You start with a tunic, perhaps knee-length for a man or ankle-length for a woman, made of substantial wool. Then if you are a man you pull on your hosen, individual stockings that reach your waist, secured to your brace or a belt. These too are wool, sometimes padded or double-layered for extra protection. For a woman, an additional wool kirtle or gown might be added over her first tunic, creating even more layers of trapped air. Feel the growing weight and bulk of these garments, each adding another thermal barrier around you. The key is layering. Not just 2 or 3 pieces but often 5 or more. Each layer traps a thin pocket of air, and still air is one of the best insulators. You are not just wearing cloth, you are wearing tiny bubbles of warmth. The fabrics are not often tightly woven or slick like modern synthetics. They are designed to breathe, to allow moisture to escape while still holding heat close. Now step into the outdoors. The cold hits you but you are prepared. You pull on your final, heaviest layers. A substantial wool cloak or mantle is essential. Feel its weight across your shoulders, its thick fabric falling almost to your ankles, perhaps lined with a coarser wool or even fur if you are fortunate enough to afford it. The cloak is your portable wall against the wind, a mobile tent that you can wrap tightly around yourself. You might even pull it over your head for extra protection. And speaking of your head, it is perhaps the most critical part to protect. You know that much of your body heat can escape through an uncovered head. So you pull on a hood, often attached to your cloak or as a separate garment called a chaperone. This hood, also made of thick wool, frames your face, cutting off the biting wind from your ears and neck. For a woman, a veil or wimple might be worn underneath, providing an additional layer of fabric over the head and throat. Imagine the feeling of its rough wool framing your face, providing an immediate sense of shelter. Your hands and feet are equally vulnerable. You slip on simple mittens or perhaps crude gloves, made from felted wool or leather, sometimes lined with fur. They are not dexterous. You cannot do fine work in them, but they keep your fingers from freezing into useless claws. For your feet, you wear several pairs of thick wool socks, perhaps even felted wool slippers inside your leather shoes. The shoes themselves are often simple turn shoes, made from a single piece of leather turned inside out and sewn. To combat the ground's cold, you might stuff them with straw, dried moss, or more wool, creating an improvised, disposable insulation layer. You feel the crunch of the straw underfoot, the slight give of the packed material offering a small buffer against the frozen earth. The overall sensation is one of being bundled, perhaps even slightly constrained. Your movements are not as free as they would be in lighter clothing. You walk with a more deliberate, shuffling gait, the layers rustling and rubbing against each other. You feel the texture of the coarse wool against your neck, the slight itch that becomes a familiar companion. The air trapped within your clothes becomes warmed by your body, creating a microclimate, a personal bubble of heat that travels with you. This extensive layering, this dedication to wool, was not just about comfort, it was about survival. Frostbite was a very real danger, capable of crippling a person for life or worse. The loss of fingers, toes, or even entire limbs was a tragic but common consequence of prolonged exposure. The right clothing could mean the difference between life and death during a particularly harsh winter journey or simply while performing daily chores outdoors. Consider the cost of this protective gear. Wool was a valuable commodity and crafting garments was labor-intensive. A peasant might own only 2 or 3 outfits, each painstakingly made, carefully mended, and passed down through generations. These clothes were an investment, a vital tool for enduring the winter, not merely fashion statements. You would mend every tear, patch every worn spot, stretching the life of each garment to its absolute limit. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Wool, when worn day after day, week after week, particularly in an era of infrequent bathing and limited laundry facilities, would develop its own distinct aroma. Mixed with wood smoke, the dampness of the air, and the scent of human exertion, it would create a tapestry of olfactory experiences that is utterly alien to our modern sensibilities. You would carry the scent of your home and your labors with you, a constant earthy perfume. The woolen shield was imperfect, of course. It was bulky, could get wet and heavy, and was a magnet for fleas and lice. But it was the best technology available. It allowed people to venture out, to tend to their animals, to gather firewood, to travel short distances, even when the world outside their door was a frozen, unforgiving landscape. So, as you stand there, bundled against the imaginary chill, feel the profound connection to these medieval ancestors. They did not have central heating or thermal underwear or waterproof jackets. They had wool and linen and leather and their own ingenuity. They learned to work with the materials nature provided, transforming them into a formidable defense against the elements. Their understanding of layering, of material properties, and of the body's need for protection was born not of scientific study, but of lived experience, passed down through countless generations. You are now dressed for the deep freeze. You are ready to face the world beyond the hearth, armed with your personal portable warmth. The weight of the wool, the layers of fabric, the enclosed warmth around your head and hands and feet. These are not inconveniences. They are your allies, your silent protectors. They are the woolen shield, allowing you to not just survive, but to endure through the harshest seasons of the medieval world. You are warm now, yes. You are layered against the biting air, your wool and linen a personal fortress. But warmth from cloth is only one half of the equation. Your body is a furnace and it demands fuel. It demands sustenance. For the medieval person, surviving the deep freeze of winter was not just about clothes and shelter. It was about filling the belly, about stoking the inner fire with food that was not only nourishing but also expertly preserved through the long barren months. Imagine the relentless rhythm of the seasons, dictating every harvest, every hunt, every moment of preparation. Autumn, for your medieval ancestors, was not a time for rest. It was a frenzy, a desperate race against the inevitable freeze, a period of intense labor to ensure the larder would not run bare. Every scrap of food, every ounce of potential energy, had to be harvested, gathered, and processed with an almost religious devotion. Consider the mighty hog. When the crisp autumn air signaled the approaching cold, the pigs were slaughtered. Not a morsel was wasted. The fresh meat, a rare treat, would be consumed immediately, but the vast majority would be preserved. Mountains of salt, hard-won from coastal salt pans or arduous inland mines, were essential. You watch as cuts of pork are rubbed down, packed layer upon layer with coarse, white crystals in large wooden barrels. This process, salting, draws out the moisture, creating an environment where decay cannot thrive. Side by side with the salted pork, fish caught in the last open waters of the rivers and seas would be treated similarly, or hung high in smokehouses. The acrid, protective smoke from slow burning would permeate the flesh, turning it into long-lasting provisions, a vital source of protein for the months ahead. It was not just meat and fish. The harvest of fruits and vegetables also demanded ingenuity. Apples, pears, and berries, gathered from orchards and hedgerows, would be sliced thinly and laid out in the sun, if any weak warmth remained, or strung above the hearth, shriveling into concentrated bursts of flavor and nutrition. These dried fruits, though humble in appearance, were precious, offering a touch of sweetness and essential vitamins when fresh produce was but a distant memory. Root vegetables, carrots, parsnips, turnips, and onions, pulled from the earth, were stored in cool, dark, dry places. You might find them buried in pits lined with straw or carefully stacked in a root cellar, protected from frost, patiently awaiting their turn to grace the stew pot. And then there was fermentation. The humble cabbage, for example, packed into large crocks with salt and water, transformed over weeks into sauerkraut. This pungent, tangy creation was more than just a flavor enhancer. It was a crucial source of vitamin C, warding off scurvy, a constant threat in a diet so heavily reliant on preserved foods. Grains like wheat, rye, and barley, the very staff of life, were milled into flour, ready to be turned into the heavy, dark loaves that would sustain families through the dark months. Every household that could manage it brewed ale or cider. You see now that these beverages were not merely for pleasure. They were a cornerstone of medieval hydration. Water sources, streams and wells, could freeze solid or become contaminated, especially in populated areas. Ale, made from grain and boiled water, provided calories and was a far safer, more reliable drink. You would likely consume several pints of small beer or cider each day, its mild alcohol content offering a gentle warmth and a welcome break from monotonous water. Mead, a fermented honey drink, might also be brewed, a sweeter, more luxurious option for special occasions, or a valuable source of quick energy. Now imagine the depths of winter. The world outside is a silent, frozen landscape. But inside, around the hearth, life continues. Picture the steaming pottage, the thick, nourishing stew, bubbling continuously over the fire. This was the heart of the medieval winter diet. A communal pot into which went anything available. Dried peas, lentils, perhaps a few pieces of salted pork or smoked fish, those precious root vegetables from the cellar, preserved herbs for flavor, and plenty of crusty bread. The bread, often heavy and dark, made from rye or barley flour, was a staple, providing bulk and sustained energy. It would be dipped into the pottage, soaking up the savory juices, ensuring not a drop of nutrition was lost. Fat was a precious commodity, coveted and carefully rationed. Lard rendered from pigs, suet from cattle, butter churned and salted. These were not luxuries but necessities. They were packed with calories, providing the concentrated energy needed to fuel a body constantly fighting the cold. A spoonful of fat added to a stew not only enriched the flavor but also gave a vital boost of warmth and energy. You would feel its satisfying richness coat your tongue, a small comfort in a harsh world. Winter was also a time for community, especially around food. Long, dark evenings were spent not just mending clothes or telling stories, but also preparing tomorrow's simple meals. Perhaps shelling dried beans, grating preserved cheese, or kneading dough for the next day's baking. The shared warmth of the hearth, the shared labor of preparation, and the shared act of eating together fostered a deep sense of connection, a bulwark against the isolating grip of the cold. Yet this frozen feast was often a precarious balance. A bad harvest in summer meant a hungry winter. Rations would stretch thin. The lean months of late winter, often called the hungry gap, just before new growth could be harvested, were the most challenging. This was when ingenuity was truly tested, when every last preserved scrap was vital, and hunger was a constant, gnawing companion. You understand now that survival was a constant, resourceful dance with nature. Every meal was a testament to foresight, hard labor, and a profound respect for the limited resources available. It was not a time of culinary extravagance for most, but one of practical, hearty sustenance, designed to keep the fire in your belly burning, even as the world outside froze solid. The simple act of eating became a daily ritual of endurance, a celebration of life clinging on against the relentless grip of winter. This was how they sustained themselves, day after day, through the long, dark, frigid months, drawing strength from the earth and from their own unyielding determination. You have felt the gnawing hunger, the desperate need for sustenance. But even a full belly offered little comfort when the very air around you bit with an icy malice. As the sun dipped low in the medieval sky, casting long, frigid shadows, you would turn your thoughts from the hunt or the harvest to the one true master of winter's survival: fire. Fire was not just a luxury, it was life itself. It was the pulsing heart of every home, the guardian against the creeping frost that sought to reclaim all warmth, all hope. Imagine yourself stepping across the threshold of a simple wattle and daub cottage, or perhaps a sturdy stone house, depending on your station and region. The walls, thick and solid, were not merely a barrier against brigands, but your first line of defense against the relentless cold. Small, unshuttered windows, or perhaps just openings stuffed with straw or animal bladders, minimized heat loss. There was no elaborate insulation as you know it today, no fiberglass or foam. Instead, the very mass of the building material, earthen floors, and tightly packed thatch roofs served to hold what little heat could be generated within. But the true sanctuary, the glowing core of this winter fortress, was the hearth. It sat usually in the center of the main living space, or perhaps against an interior wall, its stones blackened with centuries of smoke and use. Here, a fire burned not just occasionally but constantly. To let the fire die out entirely on a freezing night was to invite certain misery, if not outright danger. The embers were carefully banked each evening, buried under ash to preserve a glowing spark for the morning, a precious gift that meant less struggle with flint and tinder and numb fingers. The fuel for this vital flame was gathered with immense effort. You would have spent countless hours in the autumn months, scything through dense woodlands, hauling felled branches and split logs back to your home. Peat, dug from bogs, offered a slow, steady burn, its earthy aroma filling the air. For those with fewer resources, Even dried animal dung became a valuable commodity, painstakingly collected and stacked. Every piece of fuel represented a chunk of warmth, a measure of survival. And with fire came smoke. In earlier medieval homes, particularly those of the common folk, elaborate chimneys were a rarity. Smoke from the central hearth would often find its way out through a simple smoke hole in the roof, or perhaps just seep slowly through the thatch and any other available cracks. You would feel it in your eyes, smell it deep in your clothes and hair, a constant companion that coated everything in a fine layer of soot. It was the price of warmth, a necessary discomfort. Yet, imagine the flickering light, the dancing shadows it cast, the hypnotic crackle and pop that sang a lullaby against the howling wind outside. It was a comfort, a focal point for family and community. But warmth was not solely found within the confines of four walls. You learned to carry your warmth with you, layering yourself against the biting air. Wool was king, thick and often scratchy, but an unparalleled insulator. Tunics and gowns, stockings and breeches, all crafted from this hardy fiber, formed the foundation of your winter wardrobe. Linens were worn closer to the skin, absorbent and easier to wash, providing a base layer. Over these you might don sturdy leather jerkins or, for the more fortunate, cloaks lined with rabbit, fox or even badger fur. Each layer was a carefully considered barrier, trapping pockets of air, holding your precious body heat close. As night fell, the cold grew bolder. Sleeping arrangements were designed for maximum heat retention. You would find yourself nestled into a simple bed, often a wooden frame filled with straw or dried leaves, which provided some insulation from the cold floor. Over you, layers of rough wool blankets or cured animal hides would be piled. In many homes, particularly smaller ones, families would sleep together in a single large bed, or on pallets clustered around the dying embers of the hearth. The combined body heat of several individuals was a powerful defense against the plummeting temperatures, a silent, shared embrace against the cold. Sometimes, in the most humble dwellings, the animals themselves offered a source of warmth. Livestock, housed on the ground floor of a two-story home or in an adjoining shed, generated their own heat, a subtle but significant contribution to the overall temperature of the living space above or beside them. It was a practical, albeit pungent, solution to the relentless chill. You learned small, everyday rituals to ward off the cold. Before bedtime, hot stones might be wrapped in cloth and placed under blankets to warm the straw mattress, or perhaps a heated brick would serve a similar purpose, offering a brief, localized comfort that slowly dissipated into the night. Throughout the day, warm drinks, spiced ale, mulled cider, or simple hot water infusions provided internal warmth. Meals were hearty and hot, the fire in your belly supplementing the fire in the hearth. Life during winter became largely an indoor affair. Outdoor work, unless absolutely essential, was minimized. Instead, the long, dark hours were spent around the hearth, engaged in tasks that could be done by firelight: mending clothes, spinning wool, carving wood, telling stories. These communal activities not only kept hands busy but also fostered a sense of togetherness, a shared resilience in the face of nature's harshness. The warmth of human connection, of shared breath and laughter, was as vital as the glowing coals. The psychological impact of the cold was profound. The ever-present threat of frostbite, the misery of damp, bone-chilling air, the insidious creep of illness brought on by exposure, these were constant companions. But the fire was also a symbol of hope, a flickering defiant spirit against the endless gray. Its warmth was a balm, its light a comfort, its presence a guarantee of life. To sit by the fire, feeling its heat soak into your chilled bones, was a moment of profound gratitude and simple pleasure. Of course, the ability to master winter's warmth was deeply stratified by wealth. A lord in his stone castle might have roaring fires and multiple hearths, servants to constantly feed them, tapestries on the walls to block drafts, and an abundance of fine furs and warm clothing. His challenge was one of scale, heating vast spaces. For you, the common villager or peasant, The struggle was more intimate, more immediate. Every log was precious, every scrap of wool a treasure. Your home was smaller, but also harder to heat efficiently, and the margin for error was slim. Sickness, a poorly maintained roof, or a shortage of fuel could quickly turn discomfort into catastrophe. Yet, despite these stark differences, the core strategies remained universal. The ceaseless pursuit of fire, the ingenuity of layering, the wisdom of huddling together. You understood that warmth was not just a sensation. It was an active pursuit, a daily battle waged with ingenuity and grit. The dancing flames in your hearth were more than just heat. They were the heartbeats of your home, echoing the unyielding determination within you. They represented the collective spirit of a people who knew how to face the bitterest cold, not with surrender, but with defiant hearts, transforming the harsh reality of winter into a testament to human resilience. The dancing flames in your hearth were more than just heat. They were the heartbeats of your home, echoing the unyielding determination within you. They represented the collective spirit of a people who knew how to face the bitterest cold, not with surrender, but with defiant hearts, transforming the harsh reality of winter into a testament to human resilience. You stand at the threshold of your small dwelling, the biting wind a sharp reminder of the world outside. But even as you pull your woolen cloak tighter, you know that survival in this time is not just a solitary struggle. It is a shared endeavor woven into the very fabric of your village. You are not alone in this fight against the frost. Your neighbors, your kin, your entire community, you all face the same formidable enemy. And together you forge a different kind of warmth. Think of the way you gather. As dusk descends, bringing with it the deepest chill, you seek out the warmth of others. Perhaps it is in the cramped common room of a neighbor, where a larger fire crackles merrily, fed by wood pooled from several families' stores. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and simmering pottage, but also with the comforting presence of human bodies. You press close to others, your shoulders brushing, your breath clouding the air. This is not just social interaction, it is a primal act of survival. Each person present contributes their own small measure of body heat, subtly raising the ambient temperature, making the space just a little more bearable. You watch as the village elder, a woman whose face is etched with the wisdom of many winters, tells a tale by the flickering firelight. Her voice is a low murmur, a steady rhythm against the wind's howl outside. It is a story of hardship, yes, but also of cleverness and perseverance. These narratives are more than entertainment. They are a communal reaffirmation, a shared memory of past winters overcome, instilling hope when the darkness feels endless. The children, eyes wide, lean against their parents, absorbing not just the story, but the reassuring thrum of adult conversation, the collective heartbeat of their world. Consider the practicalities. The resources of the individual peasant are often meager, but pooled together they offer a stronger defense. You might contribute your carefully hoarded supply of dried herbs to a communal stew cooked in a large iron cauldron over a central fire. Your neighbor might bring a measure of stored grain. Another, a few precious strips of salted meat. This shared meal is more than just sustenance. It is a declaration of interdependence. Everyone gives what they can, and everyone benefits. No one goes hungry alone, not if the community can help it. Winter work, too, becomes a shared burden and a shared relief. While much of the agricultural labor halts, there are still tasks that demand collective effort. Perhaps it is mending tools in a communal workshop, where the shared warmth of multiple bodies and a roaring forge make the work less daunting. Or maybe it is the arduous, never-ending task of gathering fuel. You join a group of villagers, axes and saws in hand, venturing into the frozen woods. The shared labor makes the effort lighter, the conversation and camaraderie a shield against the biting cold. And when a tree finally falls, the triumph is not just yours but everyone's. When sickness strikes, as it often does in these cold, damp months, it is not faced in isolation. You have seen how families rally around a feverish child, bringing warm broth, offering remedies passed down through generations. If a breadwinner falls ill, Neighbors step in to ensure their fields are tended, their animals fed, their family provided for. The church too plays a crucial role. Its stone walls, though often cold, offer a different kind of refuge. Its priests or monks might organize distributions of food or fuel for the truly destitute. More importantly, it offers spiritual comfort, a shared belief system that helps to make sense of the harsh realities of life and death, reinforcing the bonds of faith that run through the community. You remember the collective effort to insulate homes before the worst of winter set in. Walls might be daubed with fresh mud and straw, gaps stuffed with moss. This was often a communal activity. You helped your neighbor shore up their leaky roof, knowing they would return the favor when your own needs arose. The village was a living organism, each part supporting the others. The strength of one was the strength of all. Even the architecture of your village speaks to this shared resilience. Houses are often clustered together, not just for protection against raids, but also for mutual warmth. The very proximity of dwellings, sharing walls or nestled closely, creates microclimates, slightly warmer pockets where the bitter wind is broken. Smoke from many hearths rises into the frigid air, a visible testament to the continuous struggle, but also to the continuous presence of life and warmth. The winter nights are long, stretching out like an endless, dark blanket. But within the walls of your community, there is light. There are the feasts, simple but hearty, celebrating the end of the harvest, the turning of the year, or perhaps just the sheer joy of having survived another week. You gather in the largest hall, or perhaps the local tavern, if your village is fortunate enough to have one. The ale flows freely, warming you from the inside. Songs are sung, stories are told, and for a few precious hours, the oppressive weight of winter lifts. Laughter rings out, a defiant sound against the howling wind and the creeping cold. This is the essence of your world's winter survival. Not just individual endurance but collective fortitude. The constant thread that binds you all is empathy, a deep understanding of shared vulnerability. You know that today you might be strong enough to help a neighbor clear snow from their roof, and tomorrow, you might be the one needing a helping hand when your own fire dwindles low. This reciprocity is not just a polite social custom. It is the very bedrock of survival. You see it in the way the children play, bundled in layers, their breath misting in the air, creating their own games of warmth and movement. You see it in the older folk, sitting together, sharing the tasks of spinning wool or mending nets, their fingers nimble despite the cold. Every gesture, every shared word, every communal act reinforces the vital truth. In the face of winter's relentless assault, you are stronger together. The coldest months often bring isolation from the outside world. Roads become impassable, rivers freeze, travel becomes perilous. But this isolation from the wider world only deepens the internal bonds of your village. You become a self-sufficient island in a sea of ice, relying entirely on one another. Disagreements and petty squabbles still occur, of course, for human nature remains constant. But beneath these daily frictions lies an unspoken understanding, a profound recognition that in the grand scheme of things, you are all in this together. So, as the snow falls silently outside, blanketing the fields and silencing the world, you find solace not just in the warmth of your own hearth, but in the knowledge that just beyond your door, in countless other dwellings, fires are burning, families are huddled, and lives are continuing. This shared resilience, this communal heartbeat, is the truest defense against the medieval winter. It transforms the season from a time of dread into a profound testament to the power of human connection, a beacon of warmth in the deepest chill. You are a part of something larger than yourself, a living tapestry of intertwined fates, bound by the shared necessity and the shared triumph of simply surviving another day. And as the longest night begins to yield, inch by slow inch, to the promise of returning light, you understand that this triumph is never just your own. It belongs to all of you. You have felt the communal warmth, the shared breath that defies the deepest chill, but even this powerful human connection cannot fully banish the specters that haunt the medieval winter. As the weeks of cold stretch into months, a new kind of dread begins to seep into the very fabric of daily life, a creeping anxiety that no fire, however bright, can truly hold at bay. For while you may huddle close, sharing stories and warmth, your bodies are quietly battling two formidable and relentless foes: disease and hunger. Imagine the pantry once stocked with the bounty of autumn. The smoked meats, the dried fish, the barrels of salted butter and cheese, the sacks of grain and pulses. These provisions were your lifeline, painstakingly gathered and preserved through the warmer months. Now, as winter wears on, you notice the stores dwindling. The grain bins are shallower, the salted meat harder to come by. Each meal becomes a careful calculation, a delicate balance between current need and future survival. You are no longer eating to thrive, you are eating to endure. The diet itself grows monotonous, lacking the fresh greens and fruits of summer. Scurvy, a cruel and insidious enemy, begins to manifest, its symptoms subtle at first. General weakness, aching joints, then bleeding gums and skin lesions. You might dismiss these as the inevitable weariness of winter, but for many, it is the slow, steady advance of a debilitating nutritional deficiency. Children especially are vulnerable, their small bodies struggling to maintain strength on a diet dominated by starches and preserved proteins. You see their pallor, the listlessness in their eyes, and a quiet fear settles in your own heart. Beyond the threat of outright starvation, which remains a very real possibility during particularly long or severe winters, the lack of varied nutrients weakens your body's defenses. You become more susceptible to every passing ailment. And in the close confines of your home, with family and perhaps even livestock sharing the same space for warmth, illness spreads with frightening speed. Consider the air itself within your small, smoke-filled dwelling. The hearth provides warmth, yes, but it also fills the room with particulate matter. Without proper ventilation, the lungs suffer. Coughs become chronic. A simple head cold can quickly descend into bronchitis or pneumonia, especially for the very young or the elderly. You hear the wheezing breath of your grandmother, the hacking cough of your youngest child, and you know these are not just minor discomforts. These are potential death sentences. Fevers rage through entire villages. One person falls ill and within days half the household is bedridden. Without understanding the germ theory of disease, without antibiotics, and with limited hygiene practices, there is little you can do but offer comfort, pray, and hope for recovery. You boil water for infusions of herbs, remedies passed down through generations, but their efficacy against many virulent diseases is minimal. A fever is a terrifying enemy because it strikes indiscriminately, felling the strong and the weak alike. The lack of sanitation is another critical factor. With frozen ground, privies are difficult to dig or maintain. Waste accumulates, especially in more densely populated villages and towns. Water sources, already potentially contaminated, become even riskier if the well or stream is shared by many and unprotected from runoff. Dysentery, often called the bloody flux, can devastate a community, draining the life from its victims in a matter of days. You see the rapid decline, the dehydration, the utter helplessness as it sweeps through your family. Then there are the common infections. A cut or scrape that would be a minor inconvenience in summer becomes a dangerous portal for bacteria in winter. Without proper antiseptic knowledge, without access to clean dressings, a simple wound can fester, leading to sepsis and an agonizing death. You might lose a finger or even an arm to an infection that today would be easily treated. The sheer physical exhaustion of winter life also takes its toll. The constant battle against the cold, the reduced calorie intake, the relentless chores, all contribute to a state of chronic fatigue. This weariness makes you even more vulnerable, your immune system operating at a lower capacity. Your muscles ache, your head throbs, and the ever-present chill seems to penetrate to your very bones. The emotional and psychological burden is immense. You live with the constant threat of loss. Each cough, each pale face, each day of reduced appetite, is a source of silent terror. The grim reality is that winter is a season of death. For every triumph of survival there are countless tragedies. Graves are dug in frozen ground, a heartbreaking testament to the season's merciless grip. Infant mortality rates soar, and many elderly simply do not survive until spring. You learn to recognize the signs, the subtle shifts in health that signal a turn for the worse. You watch your loved ones with an anxious eye, praying for strength, for resilience, for the dawn of a warmer day. You share the meager food, you nurse the sick as best you can, you offer what little comfort is available. But deep down, you know that some battles are simply too great, some enemies too powerful for even the strongest community to overcome entirely. The shared resilience you felt earlier in the winter, the communal heartbeat, now takes on a more somber tone. It becomes a shared mourning, a collective act of remembrance for those who did not make it through the darkest months. The cold, the hunger, the ubiquitous diseases of winter are not just abstract concepts. They are deeply personal experiences that shape your life, your family, and your community. They are the grim companions of the medieval winter, constant reminders of the thin, fragile line between life and death. And as the first faint signs of spring begin to stir, a profound sense of relief washes over you, mingled with the quiet sorrow of those who were lost along the way. You have survived, but the scars of winter, both visible and invisible, will linger long after the snow has melted. The quiet sorrow of those lost, the visible and invisible scars of winter, these are real. Yet even in the deepest, most unforgiving grip of the season, when the cold seemed an adversary too formidable to conquer, you found ways to fight back. Not with swords or shields, but with something far more resilient: hope, faith, and the enduring power of shared human spirit. These were forged into rituals, moments that punctuated the long, dark months, offering solace and a promise of renewal. Imagine yourself standing on the shortest day of the year, the winter solstice. The sun, a pale, distant disk, barely clears the horizon before beginning its swift descent. The cold bites deeper than ever, and the world feels muted, holding its breath beneath a heavy blanket of snow. But this is not a day of despair. It is a day of defiance. You gather with your kin, your neighbors, your community. Great fires are built, roaring in the hearths, not just for the physical warmth they provide, but as a symbolic act, a powerful invocation. You watch the sparks dance upwards, a visible prayer, coaxing the sun to return, to regain its lost strength. Every ember glows with the promise of future light. You decorate your humble home with evergreen branches, holly and ivy, their vibrant greens a stark contrast to the monochrome world outside, potent symbols of life's persistence even in death's cold embrace. You hear carols, ancient songs of hope and light, their harmonies carried on the crisp, still air, piercing through the gloom. Feasts, perhaps modest by modern standards but opulent in their scarcity, bring fleeting yet profound joy. Roasted meats, carefully preserved ale brewed months ago, stored cheeses and dried fruits. This is a moment to replenish not just your belly but your very spirit. You participate in the 12 days of Christmas, leading up to the Epiphany, each day a small festival, a precious break in the relentless monotony of winter's grip. These festivals are not just celebrations, they are psychological anchors, holding you firm against the encroaching darkness and the gnawing fear of scarcity. The church, a towering presence in the spiritual and social landscape of your village, offers its own calendar of solace, a comforting rhythm to the long, dark season. You attend services more diligently now, seeking communal warmth and divine intervention. Saints' days, often tied to agricultural cycles or specific protections, become focal points for shared prayer and local traditions. St. Blaise's Day in February, for example, brings blessings for throats, a vital concern when persistent coughs and colds plague nearly every household, threatening to take hold and drain precious strength. Candlemas, also in February, marks the purification of the Virgin Mary, but its meaning extends far beyond that, touching the very core of your winter endurance. It is a profound festival of light. You join your community in procession to the church, each person carrying a candle. There, the priest blesses these candles, transforming them into symbols of Christ as the light of the world, but also into tangible promises that spring's longer, brighter days are truly on their way. You carry your blessed candle carefully home, its flickering flame a precious ward against the remaining darkness, a symbol of hope brought into your own dwelling. Each candle lit in your hearth, each blessing uttered, reinforces the deep-seated belief that this darkness is temporary, that life will triumph over stagnation, and that the warmth of the sun will eventually return to thaw the frozen earth. Beyond the formal rituals, there are the informal ones, woven into the very fabric of daily life during these arduous months. The long evenings, stretching endlessly, become a time for storytelling. You huddle closer to the fire, the flames casting dancing shadows on the walls, reaching hungrily towards the smoke hole above. Elders recount tales of heroes and saints, of ancient battles and wise women, their voices low and steady against the howl of the wind outside. These narratives are not mere entertainment, they are living histories, lessons in perseverance, and potent reminders of a shared heritage. They pass on hard-won knowledge and moral wisdom from one generation to the next, weaving a continuous thread of human experience. Riddles are posed, their clever wordplay momentarily distracting from the chill. Songs are sung, often improvised, their verses speaking of shared hardship, deep faith, and simple joys found amidst scarcity. These gatherings are not luxuries, they are vital. They break the profound isolation that winter can impose, fostering unbreakable bonds and feeding the soul, reminding you that you are part of something far larger than yourself, a continuous and enduring tapestry of human existence, bound by shared stories and mutual dependence. As the days imperceptibly lengthen and the sun, though still weak, feels a fraction warmer on your face, the rituals shift. You begin to anticipate spring, not just with longing but with preparation, a quiet optimism taking root in your heart. Even though the ground remains frozen solid beneath the snow, you might begin to mend tools, sharpen plows, or prepare seeds indoors, carefully sorting and cleaning them for the sowing to come. These are not acts of immediate utility, but acts of profound faith. You might bless the stored grains and seeds, praying for a bountiful harvest. Animals, too, receive special attention and prayers for their health and fertility, for they represent the future wealth and sustenance of the community. Children, if they are strong enough, are taught the rhythms of the coming agricultural year, their small hands helping with simple tasks, connecting them to the timeless cycle of planting and growing. Every small act, every shared hope, is a defiance of winter's lingering chill, a declaration that life will indeed go on. Consider the act of feasting itself, a profound ritual in these lean times. While true abundance is rare, the very act of preparing and sharing special foods, even if simple, becomes a celebration of life itself, an affirmation of collective survival. The last of the salted meats, the preserved vegetables, the hard cheeses, a precious measure of honey, these are brought forth with ceremony and shared with reverence. It is not just about sating physical hunger, it is about nourishment of a deeper kind. A feast, however humble, breaks the monotony of a gruel and bread diet, lifting spirits, reaffirming social connections, and offering a potent taste of what might come again with the spring and summer bounty. You savor each bite, understanding its true value, sharing it with those around you, cementing the bonds that have seen you through the hardest weeks. Ultimately, these rituals, whether grand public celebrations or intimate family customs, serve a crucial purpose beyond their explicit meaning. They are mechanisms of hope. They punctuate the long, monotonous darkness with moments of light, sound, and human connection. They provide a psychological shield against despair, a constant reaffirmation that winter is not forever, that life will return vibrant and green. You participate not just out of tradition, but out of a deep, primal need to believe in a future beyond the immediate struggle. Each song sung, each candle lit, each story told, is a small act of defiance against the overwhelming forces of nature. They remind you of the sacredness of life, the resilience of your community, and the unwavering promise of rebirth. As the sun finally gains noticeable strength, and the first snowdrops push through the thawing earth, a different kind of ritual begins, the collective sigh of relief. You have navigated the perilous journey through winter's heart, sustained not only by your stores and your ingenuity, but by these ancient, powerful rituals. They are the invisible sinews that bind you, giving strength when your own reserves run low. The scars of winter remain, yes, but so too does the profound knowledge that even in the bleakest times, humanity finds ways to create light, to foster connection, and to believe in the unwavering promise of spring.